Let's just turn our attention now to Attorney Malik Shabazz. Attorney Malik is the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice. Grand Rising, Attorney Malik. And thank you for being so patient with us this morning.
Oh, it's no problem. Enjoying the conversation with Dr. Akua and honored to be on your great show.
You understand the situation because, you went professional school as well. And I'm sure you passed that on to all the members of your family as well. The problem, man, what do you think it is? Our students can't learn.
I have to say that the parent makes a big difference. The parent makes a big difference. Much of everything I've heard is true according to my knowledge as a parent. But I would know that, when your child is born or my daughter was born, I guess she didn't know. She couldn't know at that time that any stereotype that said that if you learn too much, you would be sounding white. So I guess it was the time that I spent and her mom spent as parents, just reading with her and emphasizing learning and having her put the right things in her ear as a very young child that made the difference, that made a big difference. So, I just know the parent can make a difference. And that's what I want to say right now. I agree with everything I heard, but I know a parent, if that parent gets with their child, reads with their child, emphasizes the right things with their child, and takes time off of these phones and devices to teach our babies that they're going to do better also.
Right, and you've got to get them at a young age too, family. But let's turn our attention now to Attorney Malik. The Voting Rights Act and the NAACP is calling for student athletes, blue chip athletes, to boycott some of these schools in some of the states that are going to benefit from the Supreme Court's redistricting. How do you see this? Is this, are they out of bounds here? The NAACP for calling for student athletes to boycott some of these schools?
In this case, I'm going to rule with the NAACP. I know there's a big controversy out there about it, and different sides are being debated. But I'm going to explain in this interview why I rule in favor of the NAACP on this action. Number one is because the NAACP is often criticized. We often criticize the NAACP for not doing anything or saying that they're not what they used to be, and they're about civil rights. So, and they're in the tradition of boycott. So, if they call some kind of boycott or strike or some kind of action, and I rarely see their president, then I have to say that I would give them some credit for that. And I'm generally for using our leverage where we have it in society to withdraw. So in this case, I know there's a debate whether a college athlete should marginalize or limit their choices in the college football arena, which could, I guess, affect their pro chances in favor of supporting a boycott against these southern schools who are in areas where they're absolutely seeking to crush the black vote. I mean, legislators and the officials of the state are absolutely redistricting these voting districts to eliminate any majority black districts, which is clearly going to cut black people's voting power on state and national levels. And so for these reasons, I'm going to side with the NAACP and willing to defend my position this morning.
All right, and we're going to let you defend your position because we'll come up on a break, and we let you do that when we get back. But how are you going to defend the position when we have NIL? You have these schools that are offering life-changing opportunities for these student athletes, getting paid. Their families are getting paid for doing something they've been doing all their lives for free. All of a sudden, there's a check coming in. Mom has probably got a house, and got a new washer and dryer, and anything that she wants and cash money. And you say, give that up, go to a HBCU or go to another school, or maybe the NIL is not that as much as what you were offered from some of these southern schools. Especially we're talking about football, the football programs and the basketball programs as well at these schools. So let's take the break. We come back. I'll let you defend your position supporting the NAACP in that call for a boycott. Family, what are your thoughts? You want to join this conversation with Attorney Malik Shabazz? reach out to us at 800-450-7876, and we'll take your phone calls next. And Grand Rising family, thanks for staying with us on this Tuesday morning with our guest, the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice. His name is Malik Shabazz. You've heard him before. We're going to talk about several issues, but right now discussing the issue with the NAACP, calling for as blue chip athletes in the South to boycott some of these states that are benefiting from the redistricting issue with the Supreme Court just issued. And Attorney Malik he's on the side of the NAACP. But some people say, why should the burden be placed on these student athletes to solve the problem of racism in this country? In fact, they've been offered money, NIL money, that's life-changing, not just for themselves, but their families. They're young enough to have their mothers and fathers who could get paid or get a house or get a car, or for mom, maybe a wash and a dryer or whatever, just by them playing a sport that they've been playing since grade school. And walk away from this for the Black community, for the Black thought cause. Make that make sense for us, Attorney Malik Shabazz.
Yeah, I make it make plenty of sense for you. On the slave plantation, there was always a few slaves that was treated better by the master, given better living quarters, given better food, allowed closeness to the master, and our people remained in slavery. And the house slave argument was, well, we can't give up all this. We ain't gonna give up all this for the cause of the race cause for our people getting out of slavery. We living good up in here. We got some extra benefits up in here. Our brothers in sports are what's valuable, not the school. The school is not valuable. White colleges are sitting up here making billions and billions and billions off of our athletes, and they are building up their race as a result of our labor, almost like on a plantation. Right now, Alabama, University of Alabama, Auburn, colleges, let's say, right in this target zone, SEC, University of Tennessee, Georgia. Well, these schools are expanding with all kind of great, awesome programs, building enrollment. They're expanding greatly off of the back of that Black athlete. And if we allow this to continue, white people are going to continue to pimp us and pimp our labor, give us a few trinkets back, in this case, NIL, and they're going on to educate a whole race and gain far superiority over us due to our complicitness with their system. Now, my argument is, if that NIL money can come to Howard University, that NIL money can come to Morgan State. Our schools can be as powerful as Alabama and Georgia if they are supported. But if all the best of our talent goes to the white man and to the white school, we're never gonna get out this condition. Now let's go to an example of why they won't starve. There's a man we all love and know. He's the most famous athlete of all time, and he's the most strongest politically of all time. His name is Muhammad Ali. And they told Muhammad Ali the same thing. They say, Brother Muhammad, if you change your name to Muhammad Ali, you're going to lose all this money and you're going to blow it, Muhammad. You're a heavyweight champion of the world. They say, Mr. Cassius Clay, if you line up with this man, Elijah Muhammad, who's out here teaching the white man is the devil, you are going to blow everything, Mr. Clay. If you don't go to this war here in Vietnam and support the Vietnam War, and if you take this crazy stand you making against the Vietnam War, you're going to lose $100 million, and which is more than that today. You're going to lose your billionaire status, Mr. Clay. And Mr. Clay, who's known as Muhammad Ali, took a stand. And his stand is today why he is the most honored athlete in the history of all athletics. And he took the most radical political stand of his day. So I don't, those my arguments to me are the winning arguments that the athlete has as much of a stake in the future of his race That's the Muhammad Ali rule. The athlete has a much of a stake in the future of his race than anybody else, and maybe more. We could break the back of the University of Alabama, break the back of the University of Georgia, break the back of the Southeast Conference. They're already showing that they're weak, the Southeast Conference. They don't dominate anymore. So I'm just opening up here. I'm hoping I got brother Rashad Singleton, who is of the National Reparations League and a major athlete. He works in the athletic activism department of the movement I'm a part of. I'm hoping he's on, but these are some of our arguments, and I think that they are stronger than the opposing arguments. Opposing arguments is individualism. Individualism. Well, brother, if you're that good and you can go to one school and get an NIL contract, you can go to a state that's not openly discriminating against Black people and go to another school. You don't have to go to an HBCU, but we want you to do that. But you can go to another school that's not crushing Black people.
You know, at 26 at the top there, Council. But here's a question from one of our listeners, a tweet actually. He says, maybe we should boycott the networks and the advertisers. Because much of that money for the schools get from television advertising. And if you go to an HBCU, they're not getting that kind of money, so they can't provide, and they don't have the endowments to provide student athletes with the kind of money they get from some of these big schools in the Southeast. So your question, your response.
I'm for all kind of economic actions that affect this power structure. So that's one way to go about it. I say go about it. I do want to point out that the Black colleges, if they got the premier athletes, they would grow much bigger overnight. Howard University is brimming at the seams right now with admissions. Since we've got to say that a lot of this, which we'll get into, belongs at the door of the worst Supreme Court justice in the history of all time, Clarence Thomas. We're embarrassed that he's even a member of our race. But what we're saying is that Howard University is brimming with enrollment since affirmative action was cut by Clarence Thomas and these MAGA cohorts who look like they batting for the Ku Klux Klan up here at the Supreme Court. And Howard University is a prime example. If they had a few more blue chip athletes, their enrollment, which is brimming, would probably quickly go to about 50,000, and they could build and expand and do a lot of science and technology and provide a lot of benefits for our people, since white schools don't even want our people no more. So you had a few top blue chip athletes, and you get a couple of them going to the pros, which they feared when Deion Sanders was at Jackson State. That's why they got him out of there. And this is not a fantasy that a MEAC, Mid-Atlantic Athletic Conference, Black colleges can rise and equal and rival these other white college conferences. That is not a fantasy. They're not a fantasy.
Yeah, but here's the reality, though, Attorney Malik. You're talking about Muhammad Ali, and you can throw in a Jim Brown and maybe a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, conscious Black athletes. Are you seeing a lot of conscious Black athletes, these days on the athletic field, and not just in college, but at the professional level as well? Are you seeing that who will take a stand for us?
Oh, am I seeing them today?
Yeah, because I haven't seen many. So I'm asking you. Maybe you know some that I don't know of.
I don't think it takes. You're right. Names don't immediately come to mind. I can think of Brother Etan Thomas of the Washington Wizards. He's recently retired, but he's very strong and Black in our movement, and there are many athletes out there that are conscious, but they're conscious out there. And then we look at Kyrie Irving and we say, well, if you take it too far in a certain direction, there are risks. We don't mean to romanticize it, that there are risks. But we're not even saying here that the high school student that comes out of high school as a star athlete has to throw a flat fist up and come out of high school and solve the problems of our race. I think that what they're saying is he just has to make a decision of right now whether I'm going to go to, just say, the University of Alabama and help build them up, or or whether I would go to the University of Maryland, for example, or Howard University. We put Maryland in there. Maryland's a state that's not trying to crush the black vote. They got NIL money, and they are top school when they get the right players. So I don't think this is a radical choice. This is not no radical choice here, man. I think it's not a radical choice. So it don't require a black fist. It don't require you to be like the brothers at the Olympics, 1968, throwing a fist up like that. It's just a simple decision. It obviously might have some effect because it's gaining a lot of controversy. It's gaining a lot of controversy about where athletes should go. I mean, one thing we can't do is just stay on the plantation for a few dollars. They're going to give us some money and give us a new refrigerator and buy me a car. Well, they'll buy you that at another school if that's what you're in it for.
All right, hold up though right there. 29 away from the top of the hour with attorney Malik Shabazz. Gloria's joining us from Georgia. She's on line 3. Grand Rising, Gloria. You're on with attorney Malik Shabazz.
Just going to make it short and sweet. I want to know, is it fair to ask the young people, these athletes, to make this sacrifice or even put it out there to them without making that same giving that same question to the billionaires, the musicians that have a lot of money, all these other people of color that have money established? Why are we not asking them to do the same thing that we're asking our young people to do? And I'll take my answer off the air.
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point, and I don't think those people are off the table. Now, we speak here specifically of the NAACP boycott, but what you say makes sense. If at certain strategic venues that they don't get to use Beyonce and all our rappers and all our people, that they would stay out of certain areas that are openly destroying civil rights. You know, what we're talking about is something that's very mainstream and staple to Black people. Civil rights and right to vote is something that most Black Americans, mainstream and Democrats value to the highest. Okay, and yes, it should be expanded. Now, we're going to talk later in this show about another subject where we talk about reparations and sanctions and boycotts. These are areas where we are asking all walks of life to take a stand, which might be considered a more radical stand. We'll get to that. So I can't speak for the NAACP. I can't say that they're not going after athletes and entertainers that are probably on the table. So I don't want to say that they're not. I know they're making a good start here, and they should ask athletes, entertainers, and others. I mean, you can, and others. I mean, you can't just give a bunch of Confederates a bunch of money and they dog you out. I was for this. I was for athletes pulling out when they said, hold on one second, Brother Rashad. Got here on the line, Brother Rashad Singleton, who's a college athlete and plays ball in Europe. And he's going to help me with this session here. But what I'm saying here, ma'am, is that when they told Black students that we don't want you here and nothing that has happened in Black past, slavery, discrimination, Jim Crow, and every other atrocity that we know about in this audience, when they said that doesn't matter and it won't be considered for college enrollment, when the Supreme Court and Uncle Clarence Thomas said that should have been the point where we said, well, if I'm not qualified to get in on merit, then I'm not qualified to get in on merit. If I don't qualify to get in and I'm playing ball, I should pull out also. Because the ball players are no more qualified than the other students that they're rejecting and sending over here to Howard University. So I said that the athletes should have pulled out at that point. When they said, well, if you're not going to let my brothers and sisters in, but you letting me in, hell, I'm not qualified, but I can make you some money and shoot the ball. I'm pulling out too. Big white college. So I thought it should have happened then with the last Supreme Court ruling. So, ma'am, yeah, I wouldn't say that they're not targeting others, but I know athletes are, And I still say we support the NAACP right now. Most people criticize them, say they're not doing nothing, so let's give them a chance to do something.
Gotcha. 25 away from the top there. I'll come on a break, but Everlasting's calling from Alabama, wants to join the conversation. He's on line 6. Everlasting, your question or comment for Attorney Malik Shabazz?
Hey, Grand Rising, brothers. How you doing? I just want to, I don't know how old Attorney Shabazz is, but I'm 67. But back in the 60s and 70s, right, most of your players for the NFL, a lot of them were coming out of your HBCUs. LC Greenwood, Mean Joe Green, Bobby. I mean, it's just hundreds of them. So anytime that talent is there, the scouts are coming to where the talent is. They don't care about, predominantly white schools. Whatever that talent is, that's where they're going to get that talent. So if that was the case, that they were to go to these schools and that top talent was to go there, eventually they would have to come to those schools because that's where the talent is at. And if you check the record, you'll see that back in the 60s and 70s, there were hundreds of players that came out of Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State, Southern, Grambling, Florida A&M. I mean, just hordes of them. So it's not a factor whether they can or can't be. It's just that do we have the will to take that stand and try to go to these schools so we can get the scouts and stuff to go. And you can still go to the NFL because look at all those guys that went to the NFL. I just think
right. And hold up.
I like to hear
hold that thought right there because we got to step away for us. Thank you, Everlasting. Thanks for your comment. I'll let Attorney Malik respond to that when we get back. It's 24 minutes away from the top there, families. I mentioned we could take a short break. You want to join this conversation? I guess Attorney Malik Shabazz. We're going to talk about reparations and some other stuff as well. Also, we're going to talk about convening a black political party as well. So you can get in on those discussions if you join us at 800-450-7876, and we'll take your phone calls next. And Grand Rising family, thanks for rolling with us on this Tuesday morning with our guest, the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice, Attorney Malik Shabazz, right now discussing the fact that the NAACP has called for a boycott of some of these southern schools in these southern states that are going to benefit from the redistricting move made by the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts? We just heard from Everlasting call from Alabama, and Attorney Malik, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to what he just said.
Brilliant comment. And then I want to get Brother Rashad Singleton, the big 7-foot Rashad Singleton, my younger brother here, to weigh in. Brother, your comments are right on point. The greatest defensive player in the history of the National Football League, or one of them, Mean Joe Green, he come from a black college. Like, I think it's North Texas State. LC Greenwood, as you mentioned, Dwight White, the great Steel Curtin, dominated by players that came from black colleges, and the coaches, they went and found that talent, and so that's a great example that it's the talent is where the power is, and it's not in the university. But I'm gonna defer to my younger brother, Brother Rashad. He's a specialist in this field.
All right, Brother Rashad, we'll get your thoughts. Welcome to the program.
Grand Rising family, Grand Rising. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for having me. I just have to agree with our dear brother, Dr. Shabazz, because we understand that, our oppressor only cares about a few things, and we always remind our people of this, and that's loss of life or loss of profit. And they truly, truly, truly won't turn their head for nothing else. Now, we're not going to advocate violence this morning, but when it comes to loss of profit, that's something that we have to preach every day, because without it, nothing is going to change. We yell, we scream, and we get out in the streets and we do all these things, but until their profit changes, nothing will. And we learned that from, a lot of our elder generations from what they did in the civil rights. We saw a perfect example of what they did in Montgomery and how they just by not riding the buses, they shut down the whole city. Just by not riding the buses. Now, it's hard to do that in today's turn where everybody got a car, you got Uber, you got everything going on, but there's still some things that we can hit. And, We already saw this with Deion Sanders, with him taking his son out there to Jackson State. The whole world saw what was about to happen. More HBCU students or more Black athletes was taking a chance to say, you know what, let's go to a Black school. That is the only reason we have NIL deals now. That is the only reason we got NIL deal, because Deion Sanders took the number one prospect in high school football and made him go to an HBCU. If it can be done once, it can be done again. And when
Brother Rashad, let me jump in here and ask you this question. When you were going to college, how many of your colleagues, the athletes like yourself, were conscious? It seems like it's a missing ingredient for many of our athletes. How many would you say?
I'm gonna be honest. It would probably, I could count on one hand, sir. That's a great question. I mean, you're talking about conscious? Maybe two out of the whole. I went to the University of Georgia now. You know, big time, you know, school and everything, but sometimes you're just so caught up and happy to be at a PWI, because sometimes we be having this thing backwards. It's like some of my brothers who out there and they say, well, I'm gonna go get me a white woman because they said we couldn't go have one. It's almost the same mentality. I'm gonna go to a white school because they said we shouldn't have that, man. You should be prideful to be amongst your own, prideful to go amongst your own. That's the type of mentality we gotta have. So conscious? Absolutely not. I mean, University of Georgia had slaves built the school. Nobody told us that. Not one athlete going to Georgia right now know that slaves built that school. If they did know that, probably wouldn't have went there. And many others wouldn't go there. So now we're gonna shift the tide. And we're not lying to these students. We're not lying to these athletes. We're gonna expose them to the real truth, that these schools will take their money that they're building from this Black wealth and Black athletes and Black wealth, turn that money into political money, and use it against us. So
Brother Rashad, I got to ask you this question, though. This is not to do with the NIL, but being a super athlete on the campus in Georgia, were they pushing the white girls, pushing up on you? Did you see a lot of that? Because we keep hearing about that, but I haven't had a chance to ask any particular athlete if that is occurring or this is real. I have parents that tell me that the white girls are pushing up on their student athletes, but did you experience that when you were at Georgia?
First day, sir. First day. I'm from a small town, Campbellton, Florida, North Florida. You know, they call that area for Bama. You don't see a whole lot of that where I'm from, but when you went to Georgia, it was the first day. And I'm going to tell you, it's deeper than that, sir. I remember having a buddy at Kansas. Now, you know, Kansas big-time basketball school. He told me before he even got to the campus, the parents of white girls was messaging him, hey, you know, my daughter's going to be a freshman with you next year. Yeah, here's a picture of her. I think you'll like her. Oh, yeah, it's deeper than the girl. The parents is setting up their daughters to date these Black athletes. 100%.
Wow. I hope you get a chance to...
Let me jump in.
Go ahead.
Quickly and just say this quickly. And so that goes against the argument that these athletes is getting money that's going back to mama and their families. A fair argument can be raised that with what's going on these campuses and what we see out of our pro athletes, that standing up for them, saying that they should be able to make as much money as they want. Well, most of the money is going to white women. A great percentage of the money is going right out of the Black families, right to white women and babies that are not coming from Black women. So, I mean, where is it going? Where these athletes? I mean, we honor their talent, but I mean, what are 60% of them doing in your face every day? They run around with white women.
Wow. And Brother Rashad, we can see this on draft night. You know, I just watched the draft to see how many of them have white girlfriends with their families. And it's astounding. The last draft was just mind blowing. So how do we reach these young brothers before you've been through the system, the collegiate system as an athlete? How do we reach these student athletes before they get to college and just let them know, hey, these are some traps that are waiting for you?
Absolutely. I think it's going to take a great deal of mentorship. You know, those of us that do know have to educate those of us that don't know. And, me, myself, I train kids. I kind of let them know, what's going to be some of the things they might see on the next level, whether it be varsity or it just be college or whatever the case may be. But it's going to take some mentorship. I mean, even if you put this on social media ain't going to make something like that viral. You know what I'm saying? That's the information they don't want to be seen. So I think it's just going to take a hands-on approach. Those of us men who have extra time on our hands, those of us in the Black Panther Party, we just have to share this knowledge. Whether it might be some seminars we need to have, whether it might be we just invite a bunch of all-stars. We start with Deion saying it don't take much, though. You only need a couple. You only need one big-time athlete to say he's going to a HBCU and maybe explain why. I think that'll be a snowball effect. I think it was about to be a snowball effect. That's why they had to enter the NIL money. That was the only thing that was going to keep Black students. It was almost a distraction. Like, all these Black students talking about pride and going to HBCU, let's just give them some money. That's always been their game plan. Oh, this guy over here talking about Black power. He's talking about group economics and reparations. Let's just give him some money. That has always been their game plan. So now, as our brother Dr. Shabazz, he was saying yesterday so eloquently, we have to rise above being the idea of that you can just pay us out. Muhammad Ali did that. That's what our brother Shabazz was saying yesterday. Muhammad Ali, he could have took millions and millions. He said, no, I'm standing 10 toes down on my square. And we have to do the same.
Sure thing. And what they're trying to do is, they're trying to do it with NIL. Tommy Tuberville down there in Alabama, he's meeting with Donald Trump because they see that these Black student athletes are getting so much money, so they want to do away with that. So that's something we got to keep our eyes on. But stay with us, Brother Rashad and Attorney Malik. We got some folks who want to join the conversation. Let's go to Buffalo. Bob's waiting for us. He's on line 2. Grand Rising, Bob, your thoughts?
Blessed love, family. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. My question is, should we work and create workers fight for true and complete freedom, or should we accept this semi-situation where we're still under the jurisdiction of the same people who raped, murdered, and did every other atrocity? Should we really fight for true and complete freedom in or from this country?
Thanks, Bob. Counselor, you want to attack that?
I'll let that comment stand. I agree with it.
All right. Let's take one more because we come up on a break. Lou's in Baltimore is on line 3. Grand Rising, Lou. You're on with Brother Rashad and Attorney Malik Shabazz.
Well, in Rising, brothers, I'm Lou Fields. My show comes on at 11 o'clock, same station, 1010 in Baltimore. And I have a different viewpoint on this situation. I look back to February 2026 when the NAACP, which I'm a member, held their annual Image Award. In the room were several Black millionaires, maybe a couple of Black billionaires. Why don't we ask entertainers not to go to these cities and states like Essence Music Fair in New Orleans that generates $1 billion every 3 years for Governor Jeff Landry? Why don't we go to where the resources are as opposed to putting everything on the back of our student athletes who are 17 and 18 years old? They don't really have their understanding of what's going on totally. And I think if we look at the HBCU, what do we really need, Attorney Shabazz? What do we really need to keep St. Augustine open in Raleigh, North Carolina? I think we have a good idea, but I think we're putting it on the wrong people, the student athletes.
All right, let's give him a chance. Thanks, Lou.
I appreciate what you're saying. There's wisdom in it, but I don't think that we should switch off one for the other. I don't think the NAACP. In a minute, we're gonna talk about reparations and our sanctions, but I don't think the NAACP has said at this point that they would not call for entertainers to support their boycott. And I know that those kind of boycotts with entertainers do work. When I had my case in Rankin County, Mississippi, when it was getting famous, and Black artists wouldn't perform in Rankin County, I know that had an effect. For the time that was in effect, it had an effect. In Missouri, when the Mike Brown riots was occurring, and they were asking entertainers and so forth to pull out of Missouri, that had an effect. And so So I don't think we should be saying, well, go after the athletes and the entertainers, but leave the 17-year-old, go after the entertainers and leave the athlete alone. I think that this is a start. And I think it has started a national conversation, and that the entertainers should be brought into it. We shouldn't be going out and just playing for just outright MAGA racists. At minimum, we shouldn't just be out doing that. We got to start somewhere. So we can't be retreating. That's what I say. I said we can't retreat. And 17, 18-year-old, they know what's going on. They got parents. Muhammad Ali was 20 years old. We're not saying here that the student can't go to a white college. On one hand, we should be saying that, but we're not even saying that. They're just saying certain states that are outright robbing Black people of representation, mainly areas that we served in as slaves under slavery. We're talking about Mississippi, Alabama. We're talking about Tennessee, Texas, and I don't know to the degree that Florida's doing it, but these are states where Martin Luther King and civil rights battles were fought, and every boycott comes with a degree of difficulty. You know what I mean? And so once again, on behalf of Black Lawyers for Justice, the Panther Party, and the Afro-Descendant Nation, we support these actions that our brothers and sisters in the civil rights movement are trying to leverage our dollars and our money.
All right, hold that thought right there.
These schools are just getting filthy rich and educating all of their babies, buying all kind of new programs and buildings off your money. You're not getting that. They have put you out of the school, told you that you can't come in unless you qualify according to their standards. Either we're going to fall for everything or stand for something one day.
All right, hold that thought right there, Counselor. We got to step aside. Stay with us, Rashad. And also, Attorney Malik, Brother Siphiwe, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, from Guinea-Bissau is joining us. So I'll let you bring him in when we get back. Family, you two can get in on this discussion. Reach out to us. Our telephone number is 800-450-7876. So we'll take your phone calls next. And Grand Rising family, thanks for rolling with us on this Tuesday morning. Our guest, Attorney Malik Shabazz. He's the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice. He's got some friends with him. He's brother Rashad Singleton. We're going to talk about national reparations. Also, brother Siphiwe, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from Guinea-Bissau on the continent. So, brother Attorney Malik, can you introduce him to the family?
Sure will. Yeah, we have on the line here my dear comrade in this struggle. His name is Brother Siphiwe Baleka, and he's in Guinea-Bissau, and he's Pan-Africanist, but his roots and struggle is right here in America. He's also an Olympic competitor, okay? And so I think what we're doing now is we talked about the NAACP and their controversial boycott, asking for athletes to withdraw from predominantly white colleges that are in areas that are specifically trying to destroy Black vote political power. But what we talking about now here with Brother Rashad here, who's on the line, athlete, he's the leader of the National Reparations League. Brother Baleka is what I call a reparations specialist. He has a specific expertise in this field, particularly in the diplomatic arena. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're talking about people responsible for slavery entities, including the Catholic Church. Well, Baleka knows a lot about that. So what we're saying to our audience here today is that we have announced, these organizations that are here, Black Lawyers for Justice, the National Reparations League, the Panther Party or the Black Panther Party movement, and other the Afrodescendant Nation under Silas Muhammad and others, and soon to be 100 organizations. We are about to call for and launch on July the 4th the National Reparations Sanctions Campaign. A National Reparations Sanctions Campaign. You just saw the Pope yesterday come out and admit what we already knew about how deep the Vatican's ties are in the African Holocaust. And so we have a straightforward proposition here, is that the banks, we say, we have agreed on the banks, the colleges, and entities that are tied to what the Pope was talking about yesterday. Entities are tied to the Catholic Church. And we're saying that these companies and corporations and entities, that they must face sanctions, that we must withdraw from them. We're saying that we must collectively now stand up like we did against Target and pull out of Wells Fargo, pull out of Aetna, pull out of, in this case, in this area, Capital One, pull out of colleges. We're talking about banks and insurance. Colleges, there's colleges here now that have been built by slaves and owe us reparations. So I know that colleges is a touchy subject, but we standing on colleges involved in slavery. And we're certainly talking about entities connected to the Catholic Church. That's the short list. There's many more. And so what we proposing and opening up talking about now is a national reparations sanctions campaign, and how hard and how much are Black people willing to stand up for what really matters, which is that reparations, and which is not begging white society for anything. That's what we're here to talk about. See if this audience supports sanctions against those that have economic sanctions, strikes, boycotts, and pulling our money out of entities that have direct profited from the transatlantic slave trade.
All right, let me go to Brother Baleka out in Guinea-Bissau, because Brother Baleka, Grand Rising, welcomes the program. Some people feel that brothers on the continent don't deserve reparations. What's your response?
Grand Rising, greetings. Thanks for having me on the show again, for inviting me, Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, my comrade. First of all, let me make it clear. My family was enslaved in the United States since the 1760s, when my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Brafa Inchaba, was trafficked from a village in Nunche, which is currently Guinea-Bissau, and brought to Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the first in my family after 250 years to repatriate, to return to my actual ancestral homeland, and begin speaking my mother tongue, living on my land, and reclaiming my culture. So, you know, I'm going to start from the new African or Afrodescendant perspective, especially since we just celebrated Malcolm X Earth Day. Malcolm X told us to internationalize the struggle, that we had to understand that this was bigger than begging for civil rights under a foreign government that dominated us, and that we had our own sovereign natural law rights that we can invoke with other sovereign entities. Now, the conversation started by talking about sports. I was an Olympic hopeful, world-class swimmer back in 1989 when I graduated high school. I ended up going to Yale University and becoming the first American on the all Ivy League swim team, first ever. I made qualifying for U.S. Olympic trial by 0.8 of a second, but I was top 50 in the world. Had I been swimming in my ancestral homeland, I would have represented an African country, my country, in the Olympics. But I wasn't able to do that, because in order to make the Olympics in the United States, you have to be a child of privilege. We know that in a sport like swimming, right, at that time, very few competitive Black swimmers. So I left. In some ways, you can look at my journey. I came to Guinea-Bissau at the age of 50, still competing, still at a world-class swimming level, to represent Guinea-Bissau in the Olympics. So leaving the United States is like leaving these racist universities. And going to Guinea-Bissau is like going to the HBCU and bringing our talent there. So we need to see a lot of our athletes taking the African ancestry DNA test, finding out their maternal and paternal lineage, right? And stop competing in leagues in the United States, stop competing, right, for countries that are not ours in the Olympics. If you look at the Olympics, if you took all of the Afro-descendants and African athletes that competed, and if they competed under one single United African States banner, we would have won more medals than any other nation. You look at track and field teams that win the relay races, like France and other places, United States. It's all Afro-descendants people. And yet we're winning medals and creating businesses and careers and jobs for the people that enslaved us. They are the lawyers in the industry. They are the TV producers. They are the cameramen. They're the agents, the advertisements. So like Malcolm said, yes, in the domestic level, we leave their universities and go to ours. But at the international level, we stop competing for the United States and we start competing for our ancestral homeland. So let me use that now to transition to the issue of reparation, right? Everybody is making a big deal about this supposed apology from Pope Leo XIV. If you actually read the encyclical, it's like a 245-page document. One single paragraph, paragraph 167, mentions, right, how the Catholic Church has a wound to the Christian memory and asks the world to pardon the Pope and the Catholic Church for not remembering what they did. The Pope doesn't actually apologize and say, we authorized and created the entire system when Pope Nicholas V issued the Dum Diversas Apostolic Edict, authorizing first the Portuguese king, and then after that, all the other European kings, right, to invade our ancestors, to reduce them to perpetual servitude. Nowhere in African law, African jurisprudence, was servitude on the African continent perpetual. This is something that the Vatican's created. So when you read that one paragraph, it doesn't say we apologize for creating and instituting this new chattel enslavement system. That is not what it says. And I'm really disappointed that our reparations movement activists are not on the front lines denouncing the apology, but are instead celebrating it as if this is some kind of step forward.
All right. Family, that's the brother Baleka calling us from Guinea-Bissau, 800-450-7876 to join us. Also, attorney Malik, we got brother Doshon with us. Can you introduce him to the family?
Okay, brother Doshon Farad is a National Minister of Information for the Black Panther Party movement, and he's on because to brother Baleka, I think what our position is that this is an opening. Most of all these apologies for any forms of slavery are to just the black people are insufficient because we want reparations. We don't. So whatever form of apology is given is an opening to the leadership. And the opening to the leadership means that what are we going to do about an admission? In court of law, this is what's called some form of admission. Well, we know the facts. I think a black population is probably at this stage grown tired of the diplomacy involved in reparations, and they've grown tired of just merely getting declarations that we are due reparations, and the people want action. They want to know, are we going to get it or how we going to get it? It's obviously that it's not going to be given to us. So to whatever extent the Pope has admitted his liability, and to the other extent where we all know where the parties are liable, we here on this line want to find out from this audience, to what extent do you support going after these companies and corporations and shutting them down? And just over a DEI issue, which is not to me as strong as reparations. DEI is not as strong as issue, should not be as reparations amongst our people. Well, that did have a direct impact on the stock market. That did have a direct impact on Target. And we're saying if something stronger comes about for reparations, we want to know, are our people in support of it? Will they pull out of these banks and pull out of these companies that we're going to talk about today and Brother Rashad going to talk about? You know, because people have grown weary of the diplomacy of reparations. If I'm wrong, I mean, if I'm correct, they want action. And that's what the Panther Party is here to talk about, what they're going to do on the ground to help bring about this result.
All right, let's bring in Brother Doshon. Brother Doshon, Grand Rising, welcome to the program.
Protect Black Power, Mr. Nelson, and to your viewers. It's always wonderful to join you all. What I wanted to add to Attorney Shabazz's statement, as well as the statement of our previous brother, is that in the past, myself and Attorney Shabazz here in D.C. have worked with Mr. John Cheeks, who was the author of the Washington, D.C. Recovery Act. And several years ago, he wrote this act, like I call it an updated reparation package, if you would. And in it, he actually mentions the entities that Attorney Shabazz was speaking of. But the difference is what Mr. Cheeks was saying is that instead of going after taxpayers, you go after various entities such as the colleges, banks, plus insurance companies, et cetera, et cetera. Now, regarding the Pope policy, it reminds me of something that Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad stated. He, when I believe Pope John Paul also issued an apology, he said that everyone gets a check, but Black people get an apology. And so we actually have to ask ourselves the question, when these people offer apologies, just how serious are they about giving us our money? Another significant thing about the current reparations fight, we saw in the 2020 election that for the first time in a long time, reparations was on the national debate, whereas you had presidential candidates discussing it, you had gubernatorial discussing it, but you had candidates across the board discussing it or entertaining it. But this is definitely the issue that I believe that all of our Black organizations need to tackle, because the debt does need to be paid. If you can pay $1.5 billion or $1.8 billion to January 6th rioters, if you can continue to keep paying Israel several billion dollars a year, or if you can continue to keep offering foreign aid in the form of billions of dollars a year, certainly you can cut a check for Black people in America, those of us who are the sons and daughters of Africa. And of course, as Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz stated, we've been working closely with the Afrodescendant Nation and the Honorable Minister Cyrus Muhammad, who is the leader of the Lost-Style Nation of Islam. This is something that we are serious about, and we demand our money. But another thing, and I'm going to close with this, people have to stop behaving as if though us calling for reparations is something new. We call for reparations since emancipation and since the founding of the Freedmen Societies. We've always demanded, and I'm talking about, we always discuss 40 acres and a mule. There were other agreements that were made in which we were supposed to get compensation besides 40 acres and a mule. So this is nothing new, but we have to keep the fight for reparations, and it's the key point of the Black Panther movement. Reparations now. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Nelson, and Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz.
All right. And Brother Doshon is the Minister of Information for the Black Panther Party movement. Family, just checking in, just join us. Our guest is Attorney Malik Shabazz. He's got a group of brothers with us. And we got Brother Baleka calling from Guinea-Bissau. We have Doshon, as you just heard. We also have Brother Rashad Singleton from the National Reparations League. We're talking about reparations. I have a tweet for you fellas, and we'll get into it when we get back. We got to take a short break. 17 at the top there, family. You too can join us at 800-450-7876, and we'll take your phone calls next. And Grand Rising family, thanks for starting your Tuesday with us at 20 minutes after the top of the hour with Attorney Malik Shabazz. He's the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice. He's got a group of fellas with him discussing reparations. We have Brother Baleka calling from Guinea-Bissau. We have Doshon Farad, who is the Minister of Information for the Black Panther Party. Also, we have Brother Rashad, who is from the National Reparations League. Well, here's a tweet I got for you fellas. Tweeter says, Grand Rising, the Pope has a lot of influence in the USA. And sometimes in politics, ask a guest, did the Pope's apology for slavery mean anything to him? I guess he means to the Pope. The person goes on to say, I see it as a first step towards the direction of reparations. So, fellas, the tweeter wants to know if you guys see this, what the Pope said is the first step towards getting us reparations.
May I answer that?
Sure.
As, I'm not sure when that person tuned in, but as I stated before we went to commercial break, we've had a Pope apologize to us before, Pope John Paul. And I can remember when Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad had keynoted the Black Holocaust Conference in April of 1994, when attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz was the head of Black Unity Nation at Howard. Dr. Khalid, he mockingly said, that everyone gets, gets an apology. I'm sure everyone gets a check. We get a damn apology. He said, we are so very sorry. Here's our apology. So I have to disagree with that because, we've gotten apologies before and nothing has happened. And there's something that Dr. John Henry Clark always warned us about. Do not mistake symbolism for substance.
Okay. This Brother Carl, here's where we are right now. That's why we want audience participation on this subject matter. If the apology falls flat as it happens, it's because either the people wasn't ready or the leadership did not seize on the opportunity. Okay, this is where we had to mature at. It's 2026, and so what it is apology will mean nothing if the leadership doesn't avail itself of an opportunity to seize on apologies, which are admissions, which are forms of admissions, and in my judgment, Black people want to know what their leadership is going to do to affect reparation. And so where we are in this conversation is beyond the analysis or the apologies, but we speak of right now economic punishment of these entities that are responsible. Now, we've just named 3 entities. There are many, but we don't want to be all over the map, and we're seeking opinion on these entities. But I would like Brother Rashad here. Brother Rashad is a co-founder of this Sanctions campaign, and I want him to explain about these companies. He has the list. And I want to explain, and he'll also tell you what happened when we tested the enforcement of these on the streets, when we tested it on the street on Wells Fargo. So I defer to Brother Rashad.
Absolutely, family. Thank you. And absolutely to your point, brother Farad and brother attorney. We've been getting apologies for so long. It means nothing at this point. We know y'all are sorry. What are you going to do for it? If I take my car and I accidentally hit your car, bust your door in, I can't just get out my car and say, I'm sorry. I really apologize. That was wrong of me. I have to put something behind that. I come in and I take the chips from a gas station. I can't just say, I'm sorry I took your chips. No. I have to pay the cost for what I did. So apology from they're scared. No. I always say, no, you got some chicken behind that in order for it to be legit or it's perpetual. So we're talking about these companies. A company like JP Morgan and Chase, who used slavery as collateral. Our ancestors. Wells Fargo, they used our ancestors as collateral. The Lehman Brothers, they was profiting off of the cotton made from our enslaved ancestors. Brown Brothers, also using the cotton that was used in the slave trade. Aetna, they sold policy ensuring enslaved people lives. New York Life insured enslaved people with slaveholders. These are all bank companies today, fam. This ain't no companies that dissolved. These are companies standing today. You have American International Group. They was putting insurance on runaway enslaved people. It goes so far as the transportation. You have CSX Corporation, Norfolk Southern, Union Pacific. We all know Union Pacific, Canadian National Railroad. All of these companies were literally built by enslaved labor. Goes down to manufacturing, the Brooks Brothers, producing the clothing, those rags that you see. They wasn't just rags and that they just found somewhere. A lot of these, they were made by a company. That being the Brooks Brothers. You go to the jewelry. You're talking about Tiffany and Company. They was using the cotton that was. I mean, it goes on and on and on to what point we have made a list to which everybody will be able to see when you go to the website. It'll be a very specific list of the companies and schools that benefited from slavery, and we have to address this head on. We don't want no apologies. We don't want no nothing less. See, as brother said, see them making Juneteenth a holiday. Well, that was the apology. That was the admission. And now we have, as a people, have to say, okay, what's next? Because you're seeing in real time, they're trying to give $1.3 billion to the people of January 6th. They ain't had no study. They move right past the apologies and all that. They're trying to give them cash money and doing it. So
What about the colleges? Tell us about the colleges real quick. Colleges and reparations.
These colleges cannot survive without Black athletes. So
what did they do? What did the colleges do in slavery?
University of Georgia was built by slaves. Georgetown was built by slaves. You take a school like North Carolina. We all love North Carolina because of Jordan. Wasn't nobody thinking about North Carolina before Michael Jordan. But let's talk about what was North Carolina before Michael Jordan. They needed land to build the school. Couldn't find no land. So you know what a slaveholder said? He said, I got some land over here. He doesn't have the land, though, if it wasn't for the institution of slavery. The University of North Carolina and Michael Jordan, as we know it, doesn't exist without a slave master saying you can use some of the land that I can. It goes on to Harvard University, Princeton. All these schools that we have been taught to love and adore, built by slaves. So we're saying we can take power, we can take control just by shifting the profit, whether that be through boycott or just be completely absent. But you can't sit here and build your whole institution off of the people that you enslaved before and then use that money to further oppress them. That's all a school like Alabama is doing. Mississippi is doing.
Well, let me jump in here at 30 minutes at the top there, fellas. There's a tactic that's been used by some folks who are saying that if they don't support reparations, they shouldn't get our votes. Is that, do you think that technique can work today? Is that a smart move? And anybody can respond.
I'll respond to that. So what we have said now in the National Reparations League to the Democrats who just love getting our vote and giving us not much for is that we will no longer support any entity that does not support our reparations. Now, some people say, well, not voting, that's a vote for your oppressor. No, I don't believe that. Not voting is telling somebody they got to do more. Not voting is saying, I'm not going to be sitting here and satisfied with you giving me nothing. Democrats could go 10 times farther than they do for reparations and don't. So if you keep accepting the crumbs, when the hell are they going to give you the whole plate? When we just keep accepting the crumbs.
Okay, what I wanted, I'll comment on that briefly. Then I want Brother Baleka, Brother Siphiwe Baleka knows where that Vatican money is that has weak points, but as it relates to Afrodescendants or Black people. He knows in America where that Vatican money is, that if Afro descendants decide that they're going to affect that money, that it would affect that Pope, affect that Vatican. So, but I want to say, so I don't know if our people are willing to take a strong stance. They should. I support that stance. No reparations, no vote. I don't know. That's why I'm anxious to hear what the audience has to say today. I don't know if they would support such a strong stance as no reparations, no vote. I would say they should. I would say that an easier thing that I want to hear their opinion on that they would support is pulling their dollars out of these companies that Brother Rashad has named that have directly benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, and that would be powerful if we turned on CNN and we seen a Wells Fargo today, the stock dropped 30% due to the national reparations boycott. And this is shocking, Bill. Where are you? And we see this coming on the news and it taking effect. Black people just largely achieved this now against Target. So that's what I see as the lower hanging fruit. So what I'm gonna do is I want to defer to Baleka and the audience because I just want to know, I think the people deserve strong leadership with a clear vision that's ready to not just complain but take action. So therefore I'm gonna defer right now.
All right. 28 away from the top of the hour. One of the things that Attorney Malik, that we discussed this previously about building a black political party. So this issue can be thrashed out today and we can come up with some sort of a consensus. Where are you on that? And I want to get Brother Baleka to really have his contribution since he's on the continent, if it's something that he signs off on as well. So fellas, can you help us out with that? Black political party.
Yes, are you asking, I'm sorry, Mr. Nelson, are you asking that to any one of us?
Yeah, any one of you, because I asked for Brother Baleka, but I hope he's still with us. He's out in Guinea-Bissau.
I'm here. May I?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, again, Black people are a unique class of people within the American polity. We are outnumbered. We are less than 20% of the population in a system where one man, one vote, right, is supposed to majority rule. Any place that we are where we are not the majority, right, it is highly unlikely to be able to exercise decisive power. Even in the traditional Black Belt South, where our ancestors were first brought and where the majority of our people still live, we are not the majority population. If we're going to talk seriously about Black political power, we have to talk about concentrating. We have to talk about concentrating in power. That means we have to identify where are the areas that we can move into, where we can become the majority population, either at a municipal level, the state level, right? Where we can then use the vote to get what we want. To talk about Black political power outside of a framework of concentrating that power in strategic areas, to me, and to people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who in 1956 says, I'm not voting in any elections, it's pointless. We've been using these strategies for a long time. So if we want to talk about a political party that serves our interests, we got to talk about demographics and concentrating that power. And that means people actually leaving the North, moving to the South, moving to cities strategically, right? Selling their homes. And I'm not sure we're ready to actually do that. So we follow strategies that just don't work. And even if we do elect Black elected officials, there's the whole entire social, psychological problem of class interest, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz had asked me to talk about the Vatican, which was the single largest profiteer of the enslavement of our ancestors. because they're the ones that authorized it in a document known as the Dum Diversis. And then they signed monopoly Occidental war contracts with each of the enslaving nations. That said, 50% of the profits had to go to the Catholic Church, meaning throughout the entire 5 centuries, regardless of who held the contract, the Catholic Church kept getting its profit, making it the single largest profiteer. So if you want to actually target the main entity responsible, you have to go towards the Vatican and the Catholic Church. Now watch this. If you look at the Archdiocese of Baltimore, under its Seek the City to Come reorganization plan, the Archdiocese already closed nearly half of its city's parishes and is merging 2/3 of its predominantly Black Catholic churches out of existence. So the Archdiocese is a
Right. And Brother Baleka, hold that thought right there. We got to take our final break. I'll let you finish your thought on the other side. Brother Baleka is reaching out to us from Guinea-Bissau. He's joined by attorney Malik Shabazz and also Brother Doshon Farad. And also Brother Rashad is also with us to talk about reparations and what it means for us. What are your thoughts? 800-450-7876 will get you in. And we'll take your phone calls next. And Grand Rising family, thanks for sticking with us on this Tuesday morning with our guest, the founder of the Black Lawyers for Justice, attorney Malik Shabazz. He's got with him a bunch of fellas. He's got Brother Baleka calling us from Guinea-Bissau. We also have Doshon Farad. He's the Minister of Information for the Black Panther Party. We also have Brother Rashad Singleton from the National Reparations League. Of course, we're discussing reparations. Before we left for the break, we're speaking with Brother Baleka in Guinea-Bissau. So, Brother Baleka, I'll let you finish your thought. And we got some fellas who want a question for you, brothers.
All right. I'll just try to make this one example in light of this issue with the Pope and the Vatican and reparations and the non-apology that was issued the other day. If you look at the Archdiocese in Baltimore and in New Orleans, you have to understand the Vatican is mired in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, okay? Over $500 million. And what they're doing is they're going into the Black communities and divesting themselves. They're selling off the churches, abandoning their own Black parishioners in order to get money to pay off these debts. So in other words, right, these Chapter 11 bankruptcy debts is because of the hundreds of clergy sex abuse claims. What the Vatican is doing is using the real estate of our Black ancestors as collateral to pay for their institutional crimes. Now, if the Pope did issue an apology, which he didn't, an apology without asset transfer is an insult. And so what attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz and I and Rashad and others are discussing is, how do we strategically target and boycott the Vatican and the Catholic Church in the United States to stop this ongoing theft of our resources, which is happening right now in Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., and other major cities? That's just one example. So yes, we go after the banks. Yes, we go after the colleges and universities, anyone that's involved. But the main player is the Vatican.
All right, got you. As I mentioned, we got some folks who want to talk to you guys. Jamil's calling from Cleveland on line 4. Grand Rising, Jamil, you're on with the group.
Grand Rising, hostess to the panel. I've been listening earlier today, and I agree with the majority of everything that's been said. I wanted to leave a couple of comments and then listen to the panels, what they thought about that. I think earlier I heard that you were talking about the slave history that a lot of these universities have dealing with the slave trade, going back to the slave trade. I think one thing that I see is a lot of our people aren't educated to that, because I learned something myself. The history of North Carolina and these different universities that they have going back to the slave trade. I think our community has done a bad job of educating our people to that, because I believe most people don't know about that. And then another thing, when you talk about Black colleges competing with these universities, I think that it would be a better we would be a lot better if we, our billionaires and millionaires, contributed money to the black colleges to be able to attract more black athletes. Because one thing that I've learned in the city of Cleveland, I do a lot of programs myself, and I've learned that when you give our people resources, like offer them free resources or something that's for their own benefit, they're more involved. Unfortunately, like Dr. Claude Anderson say, our people are individualistically thinking people and not group people. So most of the times we go to these colleges for the resources. We go to the military for the resources. We don't necessarily go to these places because it's the right thing to do. And then, I mean, unfortunately, that's the case when you're dealing with black people. So I think that if we had economic, could help out these black colleges economically, that would be give them a better opportunity to compete with the major schools. And I'll listen to what everyone has to say. But
All right. Thanks, Jamil.
I
Rashad,
defer
you're
to
the college
Brother
person.
Rashad for that. I think
Yes,
Brother
of course.
Rashad best for that.
Brother
Absolutely.
Rashad.
Brother, yeah, you're right, brother. That education does have to start. A lot of this information, you just I had to read it in the books. Nobody was given this information. And, you talk about the resources. You're right. When I went to the University of Georgia, I'm going to be honest, and I haven't even shared this with many people. The reason why I wanted to go, it was a little bit closer to home. It wasn't too far, so my mom could go to the games. That's on the surface. But behind it was like, well, this was a school that I knew smart white kids, even at my school, they couldn't get into. So it was like a pat on my back, like, look at it, I can go to this big time school that even these white folks can't even go to from my area. But that was the wrong mindset. Obviously, 2005, HBCUs wasn't being as pushed as much as it is now. But in order for us to compete, you're right, it has to be more resources. When you look at the donors, University of Georgia has 75,000 donors. 75,000. That money altogether comes up to about in the hundreds and hundreds of millions. When you compare that to a FAMU school, they only got about 5,000 donors. So in order for us to make the impact, we do have to, I think it's not just going to happen. We have to be completely strategic on aligning the resources to some of these schools to make some of these athletes change. And that's going to take organization. I look at the numbers of the NAACP, that's about 300,000 people. So everybody's going to have to do their part in order for the result that we want. Like, we got 300,000 people in the NAACP alone, maybe another 100,000 in the Black Panther Party. We can be able to organize this information and get it out, because once you know, as you just said, it changes your whole outlook. If I had known University of Georgia was built by slaves and they ain't have no type of scholarship funding for the descendants of those slaves, why would I go there if I got some sense of pride? But in order to do that, though, we have to have the resources at these Black schools. It's like we tell somebody to put something down, okay, what they gonna pick up? If we tell them to drop Mercedes, okay, what they gonna drive? We tell them not to eat this, or what they gonna eat? So we just have to have, I think if we have the education and a reasonable substitution, I don't think it's a hard decision for these athletes or for anybody to change how they put their time and money into what entity, because they know it's for their good over in the long period. We got to play the long game. NIL money, you going to the school, that's kind of the short game. When they're going to use that, the resources that you built for that school, and turn it against you, that's a loss. We have to be steadfast on the mission, and that is true liberation. And there's no way we can get liberation under the umbrella of our oppression.
Gotcha. Hold the thought right there, because we still got some bunch of folks who want to speak to you, fellas. Let's go to Richmond, Virginia. Aleem's waiting for us. He's on line one. Aleem Muhammad, salam alaikum, my brother. Grand Rising, you're on with the panel.
Wa alaikum salam. Good morning, my brother. We so-called Negroes sound so weak and punctified. We sound weak and punctified to ask somebody for something that we can take and do for self. You can't ask your enemy as long as you wearing his name for some reparations. We give the enemy strength by participating in his world, his government, his military. He rules by force and use our energy to keep his government up. We can't talk about, I'm just going to close by saying, look, man, let's go to the whole root of the problem. You still intelligent so-called black people wearing a white man's name and identifying with his government. We got to cut the cord all the way. A complete separation from his language, his name, his identity, and stop letting him use our young people to rule the world. Call it like it is. We got to separate from him and demand we can take what we want without firing a weapon. If we take a stand and call it like it is and be real.
All right. I'll tell you what, Brother Alim, let's give him a chance to respond because we're racing the clock here.
I like to
Go
respond
ahead,
to that.
Counselor.
Strong comments. I don't know if we could get everything we want without firing a weapon, but I do agree that separation and black nationalism, as Elijah Muhammad and Minister Malcolm X taught, is our best solution. The issue here, my dear brother, is we've heard the cry for separation, including beginning with changing our names and our language. We've heard this since 1930. It reached its peak in around the 1960s. You saw a great example of it take place with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, him building what could be considered a nation within a nation till he died or passed in 1975. So what we're saying right now, my dear brother, is that, for example, we're in the white man's banks right now. We're in the white man's banks and banking with the white man. But what we're saying is that when we start taking our reparations back, when we start forcing blood-sucking businesses out and start holding them accountable, that means we come out of the white man's bank and we should be going to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had, a guarantee bank or a black bank. We don't have a Nation of Islam bank, unfortunately, today, but we still have Industrial Bank in Washington, D.C. We got One United Bank, which is part of our program here is, as we call black people, to separate or come out of or punish entities that have robbed us. We are implementing and gathering a black business and referral campaign so that every time we tell a brother to come away from what the white man has or where he's robbed us, we're referring them and deferring them to a black bank or a black business or a black entity or a black college. So I don't want you. We're talking about. We're not asking for anything. We're done with that. And if you say it can be done without firing a shot, then your main weapon have to be economic. If you're talking about a separation without firing a shot, then I know your main shot is economics. So we agree with you. But we agree that we have to now have leadership that will put this into practice. Otherwise, it's just a theory that we'll keep repeating year after year as the man goes on. I want to say this firmly. We are here and believe in establishing a party for black people that is as strong and fights as hard for black people. We are here to establish a party that fights as hard for black people as MAGA and Trump and his boys are fighting for white people. That's what we're for. We're for a mass black party that may run some elections, but it's bigger than that. And we need a party like a Panther party that can compete with the donkey and the elephant. A party that the masses of black people would identify with. And this party not only votes, this party practices self-determination. This party dominates politics the way the Black Panther Party dominated the political scene in America once the passing or the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Not something we can get all the way into today, but that's what we want. And then this party conducts sanctions, boycott, and strong actions for reparations. This party backed the building of black banks and farms and schools for black people and educates black people. So I can't preach, brother, but we with you, but we're wrangling with the leadership question of how to implement this because time is running by fast.
And if I could just add, brother, everybody on this phone call, if you was walking down the street and I took your wallet out your back pocket and just started running, everybody on this phone call would say,